Mercadian Masques was a set released in October of 1999. That was 25 years ago. In that quarter of a century, there was a creature type that was long forgotten, mercenaries. Finally, mercenaries are good again. All that it took was the release of Outlaws of Thunder Junction supporting the Outlaw creature type, which includes mercenaries. Today we have a deck tech on Vial Smasher, Gleeful Grenadier. This little 3/2 mercenary comes down early on turn 2, and whenever another Outlaw enters the battlefield under your control, Vial Smasher deals 1 damage to target opponent. So with impact tremors in the command zone, how are we going to build this deck? First, we're going to focus on that old Mercadian Masques chain, we're going to play some general mercenaries, some general outlaws, and focus on direct damage. Let's get into it. The chain begins with Cateran Persuader. This 2/1 for 2 allows you to pay 1 and tap it to search your library for a mercenary card with converted mana cost 1 or less and put that card directly into play. Wrathy Intimidator does the same thing, but it lets us get a 2 mana cost mercenary and put it directly into play. Now you're starting to see how that chain works. Bog Glider is also like Wrathy Intimidator. It's going to allow us to get a 2 mana cost or less mercenary and put it into play, but we do have to sacrifice a land. Who needs lands when you got mercenaries? Cateran Brute does the same thing. It gets us a 2 mana cost mercenary and puts it into play. You're starting to see a theme here, I guess. Cateran Kidnappers is a 4/2 for 4, but it allows us to get a 3 cost mercenary and put it directly into play. These tutors are insane. Wrathy Fiend's another one of these tutors that gets a 3 mana cost mercenary and put it into play, but it does add to our burn strategy by making each player lose 3 life when it ETBs. Guess what? We have another 3 mana mercenary tutor, Wrathy Assassin. On the upside of this one, it lets us destroy a tapped non-black creature as a benefit. Cateran Enforcer has Fear, and it lets us get a 4 mana cost mercenary and put it into play. It's going to give us a lot better targets than those ones we've seen earlier. Now it's time to get into the real deal tutors. We got Cateran Slaver. This creature has Swamp Walk. It's a 5/5, so it's pretty big, and lets us get 5 mana cost mercenaries and put them into play. Our final piece of the tutor chain is Cateran Overlord. This 7 mana 7/5 is pretty big, and it gives you a free sack outlet, so your creatures don't die to exile removal, and for 6 mana you can tap it to get a huge mercenary directly into play. Now that we've got all these ways to tutor mercenaries, what mercenary support do we run in this build? Our first piece of mercenary support is Cateran Summons. This is a 1 mana tutor to get any mercenary out of your deck and put it into your hand. Now, Rampart Crawler may look like a terrible card, a 1 mana 1/1 that can't be blocked by walls, but it's a mercenary and it costs 1 mana and gives us a tutor target. Silent Assassin is a 2 mana 2/1 mercenary that allows us to destroy a target blocking creature at the end of combat. They're not going to block our mercenary army at all. Charred Grave Robber is just a Gravedigger in our deck. It's going to get back an Outlaw card and put it in our hand, and you can escape this guy to do it again. Doom Necromancer may have the craziest creature type line in all of Magic, but you can sack it and pay a black to get back any creature to the battlefield from your graveyard. Kellogg Dangerous Mind is a 3/2 first striking hasty creature that's also a mercenary, and when it attacks you create a treasure, then it gives you a payoff for treasures where you can steal creatures. Prickly Pear, besides being a pun, gives you 2 bodies for 3 mana, and those bodies are mercenaries. Strong Arm Thug is another mercenary that brings back mercenaries from the graveyard to your hand. We like the synergy. Throwkill Disciple is another mercenary that gives you card advantage later in the game because it creates junk tokens when it dies. Greywater's Fixer is another mercenary that gives all of our outlaws a second life because we can encore them from the graveyard and get 3 Vial Smasher triggers. Wasteland Raider is another mercenary that gives us a Plaguecrafter type effect, and we can squad this to wipe out the opponent's entire board. Crown Hunter Hireling adds the most fun mechanic in the game, Monarch. You become the Monarch and you get to pass it around to add some excitement. Our final mercenary is Rakdos the Muscle. This is a sacrifice outlet that allows you to exile cards from a target opponent's library when you sack a creature, and you get to play those cards. Now let's get into the outlaws we'll be adding to this build. At Knife Point, it's going to give all of our outlaws first strike on our turn, and when we commit a crime, it's going to give us a little mercenary token that can buff our creatures. Back in Town is basically a Patriarch's Bidding for our deck. It's going to return all of our outlaws from the graveyard to the battlefield. Laughing Jasper Flint is a little lizard rogue that's going to allow us to steal cards from the top of our opponent's libraries, and when we steal creatures, they become mercenaries when they're on our board. We need card draw on our deck. Luckily, Morbid Opportunist is a rogue, making it an outlaw. Whenever another creature dies, you get to draw the card, but it only triggers once each turn. Rakish Crew is just an enchantment that's going to give us a mercenary when it ETBs, and whenever an outlaw we control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So, it's another drain effect for our style. Dead Before Sunrise is a board wipe in our deck. It's going to buff up all of our outlaws and allow them to do damage to other creatures. Discreet Retreat's going to help us ramp out outlaws, and it gives us a draw every time we cast our first outlaw spell. Hellspur Posse Boss is going to give all of our outlaws haste so they can get in as soon as we drop them on the field, and it also comes with 2 mercenary bodies. Now it's time to lean into that direct damage strategy we have with our commander. Goblin Bombardment is going to allow us to sacrifice our outlaws to get that last piece of damage in on an opponent to win the game. Time for redundancy. We've got Impact Tremors. It basically does what our commander does, but it deals it to every opponent. It would be a great oversight not to run the original Vial Smasher. It's going to deal damage every time we cast our first spell to an opponent at random. He may not be an outlaw, but he's honorary. Perforos God of the Forge is right at home in this deck. It's going to deal 2 damage to each opponent every time a creature ETBs. We're going to burn them out. Terror of the Peaks is that dragon that could. Every time a creature ETBs under our control, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. The last piece of direct damage tech is Warstorm Surge. Does the same thing as Terror of the Peaks, but it's an enchantment. That about wraps it up. You can see the new Vial Smasher, Gleeful Grenadier can be a fun deck, but I don't think it's going to be too powerful. If you like this deck, the full deck list is on Moxfield, link in the description. So anyways, please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.